Bad ideas are awesome. So I had a kind of crazy day at work today, and I was trying to think of things to talk about today on a litany of awesome things, and I couldn't really come up with anything. Thought maybe it was time for like a Frank Miller or Alan Moore or Grant Morrison is awesome, and I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't decide how to approach those subjects. And then, thanks to Facebook, I learned that this album, The Beach Boys' Love You, is 36 years old today. And so I want to talk to you about The Beach Boys' Love You, because it is an amazing record, and it's also a terrible record. But that's the case with a lot of my favorite records, or some of my favorite records. They're full of bad ideas. So, like, you go all the way back to, like, the Basement Tapes, and it just sounds awful, and it's just confusing and muddled, but it's so good. And even most of the tracks that I love off the White Album by the Beatles, it's just bad ideas, just taken to their absolute extreme, and just it becomes this beautiful, confusing mess of what? But it's the what that I love, and it kind of peaked for me with the Beach Boys' Love You, because you've got Basement Tapes and you've got the White Album, you've got some other weird stuff, early Velvet Underground, things like that, it's very weird and it's confused. And then, like, in the 80s, you get, like, Parade, which sounds awful and amazing at the same time, and is just one of my favorite Prince records ever. And also my very favorite Fleetwood Mac album, Tusk, is full of bad ideas. It's just strange production and songwriting, and just so weird and amazing. But the sound of Tusk owes so much to the Beach Boys' Love You. I don't know if Lindsey Buckingham loved this record as much as I think he did, but I know that he loved Brian Wilson, and he really spent quite a considerable amount of the 80s just trying to be Brian Wilson. It shows, and it's a good job that he did. And Tusk, and even some of the other, like some of his solo records from the 80s are really good, and also really bad. Bad idea music has become kind of a genre for me. Just like when you've got sort of a wall of sound thing going on, but it's like weird, like Moog synthesizers and acoustic guitars and kazoos, and it just doesn't seem like it should work, and then it almost doesn't work, but then it really does work. In the same way that you can point to a lot of Bob Dylan records and you know, they approach the Thin Wild Mercury sound that he said he got closest to on Blonde, you can see that they're trying for a thing, and they're all pointed in the same direction. And the way I feel about bad music as bad ideas as a genre, really just, it's never better or more fully realized than on The Beach Boys' Love You. A little background on the album is maybe helpful. Brian Wilson had some pretty horrible psychotic and dissociative episodes. He hid for a while, and he had next to nothing to do with recording or writing for quite some time. Brian Wilson Loves You, which was the original planned title, was going to be a solo record of this new stuff that he had started writing, this renaissance of Brian Wilson. And he didn't have a lot of collaboration. There were some people helping with the lyrics, but not in the way of like Pet Sounds or something like that. He eventually involved the rest of the Beach Boys, and it became this weird monstrosity of just amazing noises and weird like snare production and just atrocious lyrics, frankly. I could not, before I listened to this record and fell in love with it, imagine someone singing the phrase "gosh darn" earnestly, and my appreciating that. But honking down the gosh darn highway, I can sing along to, and I just love every second of it. And it's one of those rare cases for me where the lyrics and the music are just polar opposites in terms of quality, but I just completely overlook the lyrics for how amazing and horrible and amazing the music sounds. If you aren't familiar with, you know, Basement Tapes or The Beach Boys' Love You or the White Album, I don't know how that would happen, or, you know, Tusk or Parade, I think that you should give them a listen, because they are just full of bad ideas, but they manage to make them sound amazing. I guess that's it for today. Just listen to those records, especially The Beach Boys' Love You. It's one of my favorite, and it's terrible. It's just so bad, but so good. And I know that that might not be a strong, like, recommendation for anybody who doesn't already share some of my tastes, but But really, it's an experience, if nothing else. You will be able to say, I have heard possibly the best or possibly the worst Beach Boys album of all time. And that's not something that everyone gets to say. So you should check out The Beach Boys Love You, and I'll see you later.